The hour of convening having arrived, all members of the House will please report to the floor and take your seats. All members of this House will please report to the floor and take your seats. The clerk will ring the bell. We are now going to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Doorkeepers will please close the doors and keep them closed. Well, good morning. Welcome to Sine Die 2022. That was awfully weak. Some of you wanting to stay longer? Okay. Hope everybody's ready for a productive day. I looked at the calendar over the weekend, and you know what? I saw one bill on there we really need to pass today. One. And that's the state budget. Otherwise, I believe the sun will rise over the red hills of North Georgia tomorrow and over the coast. We will begin our day, and let me mention one other thing. In the ante room today, I'm doing this a little out of turn because we tend to get busy. You have some of the world's greatest cupcakes from the Sweet Shop in Blue Ridge, which won the Cupcake Wars on the Food Channel. And I got the owners over here, Nikki Gribble and Susan Catron. So I hope you enjoy those. We will begin our day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. I have the distinct honor and pleasure of introducing the chaplain today. He is the gentleman from the 69th House District, chairman of the House Ethics Committee, and my friend, Chairman Randy Nix. I have come to love Randy Nix and to respect him greatly. Over the years, he started out, when I started out in this position, I think as education appropriations chair, or higher education, one of the educations. Reapportionment, he tells me. Oh, well. See, you can tell 39 days later, I can't remember what committee he chaired. But he went on to, I asked him to chair the Ethics Committee, and he could not have done a better job. And he loves this house, and he loves, it's important to him that we set a good example at all times. And I greatly appreciate that. Plus, I just enjoy hearing his devotions. He's had some that have really blessed my heart. So without any further ado, please welcome to the podium Chairman Randy Nix for our devotion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I must say that this is a tremendous honor, but it's also very humbling. I did a little math, and if I've got this right, out of 16 sessions and 40 chaplains of the day, that's 640 chaplains of the day that I've heard, and I've heard most of them, plus another 30 or 40 through special session. That pushes me towards close to 700 chaplains of the day that I have had the honor to hear. And it has really, we've had some great chaplains of the day. And that bar is set extremely high, especially by the members of this house who have been the chaplain of the day. Now, I've been honored and blessed to stand here a number of times. And as I stand today, I realize it is the last time that I will stand here as a member and a colleague, which to me is very, very special. As I said, this is humbling. When I come up here, I always think of an old hymn. Talks about standing in the need of prayer. The old hymn says, "Not my brother, not my sister, but it's me, O Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's not the preacher, not the deacon, but it's me, O Lord, standing in the need of prayer. Not my father, not my mother, but it's me, O Lord, standing in the need of prayer. Not the stranger, not my neighbor, but it's me, O Lord, standing in the need of prayer." You know, I think, Mr. Speaker, you may have given me too much time to prepare. I usually do this getting a call at 7:30 in the morning, and I kind of plan it on the way in. But you actually asked me to do this on crossover day, so that gave me way too much time to prepare. I have been over every sermon that I've ever done. I've been over every story I've ever heard, every poem I've ever read, every book I've ever read, and every topic that I could think of trying to do that. Now, some people say that the Lord speaks to them audibly, but the way the Lord speaks to me is keeping me awake at night. And I have been awake several nights trying to come up with something that I felt would be good to share today. But today, I want to share something that has been a real inspiration to me through the years. And I want to offer a challenge to you individually and as a body. I think this is a great thought, and I want to leave that with you today. I want to tell you about a man by the name of Dr. Alexander Papaderos and what he calls the meaning of life. Now, Dr. Papaderos grew up on the Isle of Crete. He was a young child during World War II, and he witnessed the atrocities of the Second World War. Many of them are detailed in some of the writings there, but he witnessed the worst that you could possibly witness. His lifetime desire was to establish an institute of human understanding and peace, and especially reconciliation between Cretans and Germans. He devoted his life to healing the wounds of war and breaking the bonds of hatred. And against great odds, the institute was established and was a source of productive interaction between the two countries. Papaderos became a living legend as a peacemaker and as an example for others to follow. The story that I'm going to give to you was actually written or is given to us by Robert Fulghum, and many of you know Robert Fulghum as the author of Everything I Ever Wanted to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. And Robert Fulghum attended one of the 2-week sessions at this institute that Dr. Papaderos ran. And he says that on the last day, Dr. Papaderos came to the front of the room and made that ritual gesture and said, "Are there any questions?" And there was a period of silence. Nobody, even though he said that everybody had thousands of questions that had come along, enough questions for a lifetime, nobody said anything. And finally, Robert Fulghum asked this question: "Dr. Papaderos, what is the meaning of life?" And he relates it. He said, "The usual laughter followed and people stirred to go." And then Fulghum writes, he said, "Papaderos held up his hand and stilled the room and looked at me for a long time, asking with his eyes if I was serious, and seeing from my eyes that I was. 'I will answer your question,' he said. Taking his wallet out of his hip pocket, he fished into a leather billfold and brought out a very small round mirror about the size of a quarter. And what he said went something like this: 'When I was a small child during the war, we were very poor and we lived in a remote village. One day on the road, I found the broken pieces of a mirror. A German motorcycle had been wrecked in that place. I tried to find all the pieces and put them together, but it was not possible. So I kept only the largest piece, this one, and by scratching it on a stone, I made it round. I began to play with it as a toy and became fascinated by the fact that I could reflect light into dark places where the sun would never shine, in deep holes and crevices and dark closets. It became a game for me to get light into the most inaccessible places I could find. I kept the little mirror, and as I went about growing up, I would take it out in idle moments and continue the challenge of the game. As I became a man, I grew to understand that this was not just a child's game, but a metaphor of what I might do with my life. I came to understand that I am not the light or the source of light, but light, truth, understanding, and knowledge is there, and it will only shine in many dark places if I reflect it. I am a fragment of a mirror whose whole design and shape I do not know. Nevertheless, with what I have, I can reflect light into the darkest places of this world, into the black places in the hearts of men, and change some things in some people. Perhaps others may see and do likewise. This is what I am about. This is the meaning of my life." I would ask you to pause and think about this for just a moment. Truth, understanding, knowledge is there, but it will only shine in many dark places if I reflect it, if we reflect it. With what I have, I can reflect light into the dark places of this world, into the black places in the hearts of men, and change some things in some people. Perhaps others may see and do likewise. You know, light is a big part of Scripture as we study the New Testament, and spreading the light is an important biblical concept. If you look at John 8:12, Jesus said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. So that is our source. That's the source of light that we're asked to reflect, to stand in his light and reflect that to the world. And then in the book of John, John 1:5, John is describing Jesus, and he said, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And that is our guarantee. The darkness is not overcome the light that we can shine, the light that is Jesus Christ. And then Jesus, when he was speaking to his disciples, talking about them being salt and light in the world, in Matthew 5:16 said this, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. What a great charge and a challenge that is for each of us. I would ask you to just imagine what would happen if each of us as leaders of this state committed ourselves to reflecting the light of Christ into the world around us. With that as the meaning and purpose of our lives, we can truly change the world. Now, there's a great little song written in the early 20th century by Harry Dixon Lowes. Supposedly, this was written for children, but it became one of the anthems for the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s. It is a song of commitment, unity, and hope. Now, Mr. Speaker, since I can't sing, I'm going to ask my brother on the back row to help me out with this. Would you please help me, brother?
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Y'all will help me this time. Jesus gave it to me. Jesus gave it to me. Come on, put your hands together. I'm gonna let it shine. There you go, come on. Jesus gave it to me. I'm gonna let it shine. Y'all can stand if you want. Come on. Jesus gave it to me. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. I got a special verse for you. All day, sunny die, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, all day, sunny die, I'm gonna let it shine. All day, sunny die, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everybody, one more time, everywhere I go. Everywhere I go. I'm on here, y'all, come on. Oh yeah, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine.
Thank you, brother. I hope if I get a second chance at life, I'll be able to sing, but I want to thank my brother for that. Let's stand now. Let's have prayer in our pledge. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord cause his face to shine upon you and be merciful to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. And I just pray now, Father, that you would help us to stand firm in your light and to shine that light into the lives of the people that are all around us every day. For I make this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You don't expect ordinary when I come up here, do you?
No, I don't. I sure don't.
I wanted him to come up here and get his picture with us too.
Absolutely.
I started.
Great job, brother, as always.
Hey, you
I thought about that. I can't sing. I stood as far from that mic as I could. So.
Members may greet Chairman Nix and Representative Sharper in the south anteroom. Doorkeepers will unlock the doors. Members of the House. Members of the House. If I could have your attention, please. This is going to be a bittersweet day. We're saying goodbye to a lot of great members. Chairman Nix just indicated it his last time to stand in this house and speak. This is the chair's last time to recognize Chairman Don Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Information and Audits has read the journal of the previous legislative day and found it to be correct. And furthermore, Mr. Speaker, there were 3 men traveling late at night, a Jewish rabbi, a Hindu holy man, and a lawyer. They broke down, saw a farmhouse, and asked the farmer if he could put them up. And he said, yes, I can put 2 of you up in the house. One has to sleep in the barn. The rabbi said he would sleep in the barn. Shortly a knock at the door, and the rabbi said he couldn't sleep with the pig in the barn. And the holy man said he would sleep in the barn. Shortly a knock at the door, and the holy man said he couldn't sleep in the barn with the cow. So then the lawyer said, I'll go sleep. And he went down to sleep in the barn for a while, and then a knock at the door, and the cow and pig were at the door.
Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, in delivering his final report, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Mr. Burns, House 59 moves following be established as the order of business under the first part of the period unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions. Second reading of bills and resolutions. Reports of standing committees. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills and resolutions. Morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 1615 by Representative Watson, the 172nd, a bill being entitled Act to Amend Chapter 2 of Title 26 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to standards.
Agriculture and Consumer Affairs.
House Bill 1617 by Representative Fleming of the 121st, a bill being entitled Act to Amend Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to professions and business.
Regulated Industries.
House Resolution 1202 by Representative Bazemore of the 63rd, Bruce of the 61st, a resolution honoring and recognizing the Nagorno-Karabakh Republic.
Special rules.
House Resolution 1224 by Representative Cooper of the 43rd, Smith of the 70th, Dempsey of the 13th, Hutchinson of the 107th, and Hagan of the 156th. A resolution urging the State Board of Medical Examiners and Georgia Board of Nursing to disseminate information.
Health and Human Services.
House Resolution 1239 by Representative Ridley the Sixth, a resolution creating the House Study Committee on Transparency and Accountability for Non-Public Schools.
Education.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 1612 by Representative Wynn of the 89th, Shannon of the 84th, Bernal of the 77th, Roberts of the 52nd, Williams of the 37th, and others. A bill relating to primaries and elections. House Bill 1613 by Representative Shannon of the 84th, McLaurin of the 51st, Cannon of the 58th, Wynn of the 89th, and Kendrick of the 93rd. A bill relating to arrest by law enforcement officers. House Bill 1616 by Representative Belton of the 112th, Powell of the 32nd, Gamble of the 15th. A bill relating to professional counselors, social workers, marriage and family therapists. House Resolution 1168 by Representative Powell of the 32nd, Ridley of the 6th, Neal of the 74th, Corbett of the 174th. A resolution creating the House Study Committee on Motor Vehicle Safety Inspections. House Resolution 1169 by Representative Evans of the 83rd, Drenner of the 85th, Oliver of the 82nd, Cannon of the 58th, Thomas of the 65th, and others. Resolution urging the Public Service Commission to pursue actions that protect electric customers from paying plant vocal cost overruns and construction do-overs and prohibit Georgia Power from profiting on vocal construction mistakes and cost overruns. Through second readers.
Reports of standing committees. The clerk will read.
Representative Carpenter of the 4th District. Representative Stan Gunner of the 8th District, Chairman on the Special Committee on Election Integrity, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Special Committee on Election Integrity had under consideration the following bill of the Senate. Has instructed me to report the same back to the House. The following recommendations: Senate Bill 89 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Stan Gunner of the 8th District, Chairman. Representative Sharon Cooper, the 43rd District, Chairman on Committee on Health and Human Services, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Health and Human Services had under consideration the following bill of the Senate and instructed me to report same back to the House with the following recommendations. Senate Bill 338 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Sharon Cooper of the 43rd District, Chairman. Representative Jan Tankers of the 160th District, Chairman on Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Locals, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Locals had under consideration following bills of the House and the Senate. It instructed me to report same back to the House following recommendations. House Bill 1614 do pass. Senate Bill 641 do pass. Senate Bill 321 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Tankers of the 160th District, Chairman. Representative Abstration of the 104th District, Chairman on Committee on Judiciary, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Judiciary had on consideration following bills of the Senate and instructed me to report same back to the House following recommendations. Senate Bill 52 do pass by substitute. Senate Bill 200 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Abstration of the 104th District, Chairman. Representative Carpenter of the 4th District, Chairman of the Committee on Creative Arts and Entertainment, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Creative Arts and Entertainment has had under consideration the following bill of the Senate. Instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. Senate Bill 157 do not pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Carpenter of the 4th District, Chairman. That completes the reading of the reports of standing committees.
We're going on now to the local calendar. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills. One bill on the local calendar is an agree, disagree. Having received the requisite number of signatures required, the House delegation wishes to agree to the Senate substitute to the bill. If there is no objection, we will vote on the local calendar as a whole with a recorded vote. Hearing none, it is so ordered. The clerk will read the local calendar.
House Bill 1614 by Representative Jones, the 25th, Forsyth County. Senate Bill 321 by House Substitute by Senator Jones, the 10th, DeKalb County. Senate Bill 641 by Senator Brass, the 28th, City of Chattahoochee Hills. Senate Bill 612 by House Substitute is amended by the Senate by Senator Jones, the 10th, City of Stockbridge.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on the local calendar? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bills? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall these bills now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bills on the local calendar will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of the bills on the local calendar. The ayes are 158. The nays are 2. These bills, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore passed. House will come to order. This House will be in order. All right, here is the dilemma the chair has this morning. By rule, we have 10 minutes for morning orders at this time of the session. 22 members have signed up. So that would be, what, 30 seconds per member? I'm just going to kind of hit the high spots on the purpose of the morning order. And I know that somebody's going to disagree, but that's just kind of the way it is. Chair recognizes Chairman Eddie Lumsden for a morning order.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, early yesterday morning, shortly after midnight, I had the privilege of being by my mother's bedside, 96 years of age, as I watched her struggle to take her last breath here on this earth. But my heart rejoiced because I knew she was about to be through with that suffering, and I knew that she would be reunited with those that had gone on before her that she loved so much, and to see her Savior. But as I sat there thinking about her, reflecting on the fact that born a sharecropper's daughter, the 8th of 8 children, brought up during the midst of the Great Depression, becoming of age during the middle of World War II, marrying a veteran, raising 3 children who had grandchildren and great-grandchildren and even lived to see a great-great-grandchild. I just thought about the legacy that she was leaving behind, not only in through her children, but you see, my mom, when I graduated from high school, went to work at Floyd Medical Center, and she worked for 40 years. She worked until she was 84 years of age. She greeted people as they came in with a smile. She answered their questions, and she helped them get the help that they needed, often meeting people in some of the most difficult times in their lives. And she did it in such a way with grace and dignity that as she has passed, I'm just blown away by the number of people that have reached out and shared stories about things that she did for them during a difficult time in their lives. So I think I would just like to honor her in that way, but I'd like to challenge you as well, because I think that's really what we do here. I think we listen to people who have problems. I think we try our best to steer them in the direction that they need to go and get them the help that they need, and do it with smile, with grace and dignity. Take a moment and remember my mother, Ruby Lumsden Cornett, 96 years of age. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Stacy Evans for a morning order. She waves. Chair recognizes Representative Josh Bonner for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise this morning just to wish my lovely bride, Michelle, a happy 24th wedding anniversary. It is my pleasure to spend that time here with you today, and I appreciate when she shows up later this afternoon that you would help me convince her that this is, in fact, sine die, the last day. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Representative Kendrick for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll make this quick. Today is a special day here in the state of Georgia. Today is the 41st wedding anniversary of my soror and our colleague, Representative Carolyn Hughley, and today she chose to spend the day with all of us, so help me in wishing her a very happy 41st wedding anniversary.
Chair recognizes Representative Spencer Fry for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I come to you today to let you know about this book that I put on your desk, and I want everybody to read it with an open mind. I wrote the foreword to it. This is something that occurred in Athens about 70 years ago, and it's a little piece of history that I think is important for this body to recognize. So thank you all. Have a great day.
Chair recognizes Representative Rick Williams for a brief morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank you and your staff, all the honorable ladies and gentlemen of this chamber. These last 6 years has been the experience of a lifetime, and I thank you so very, very much, and I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Representative Drenner for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to take a minute as the chair of the DeKalb House delegation and say thank you to those members that are leaving. Thank you, Matthew Wilson. Thank you, Renita Shannon. Thank you, B. Wynn. Thank you, Mike Walensky. And thank you, Zuma Lopez. All of you have done such an excellent job, and we look forward to you continuing to do great things along the way. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Jaspers for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, a lot of us, or probably all of us, have some type of railroad tracks in our community and known and seen the dangers surrounding tracks. Vice Chairman Wiedauer and I like to recognize Operation Lifesaver. You know, this is a national nonprofit organization that's committed to rail safety. It's their 50th anniversary. We're very special in Georgia. We started just 2 years afterwards, and there's a lady, Miss Janine Glasgow, who has been the volunteer running this for years and years. And so we really want to recognize her and Operation Lifesaver as it saves many lives across our railroad tracks. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Bazemore for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So we know today is a happy day because of Sonny died, but it's also a sad day. And I ask that the Dean of the House come up, Dean Calvin Smyrie. We have a plaque for you, and this is from some of your row mates. And that's your favorite color. So the last thing I have for you, though, I understand you like puzzles, so I just wanted you to know that you still gonna have the chamber with you. I wouldn't take it apart because we're all together, but when you leave, take it apart and then put it back together, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Werkheiser. He waves. Chair recognizes Representative Benton. Who's not on, there he is.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In honor of Southern and Confederate Heritage Month, I wanted to talk just a minute about the musicians that have made Georgia famous. Just a few of the hundreds that have come through Georgia or were born in Georgia. The Allman Brothers Band from Macon. They started what was called the Macon Georgia Sound. Bill Anderson, who is considered to be the greatest all-time country music songwriter. And one of his most famous was City Lights, which he composed on the roof of the Andrew Jackson Hotel in Commerce. James Brown, career almost got sidetracked by from getting started because of conviction for car theft and breaking and entering. They put him in alto for 3 years, but two of his most famous hits were Papa's Got a Brand New Band and I Feel Good. Fiddlin' John Carson from up around the Speaker's neck of the woods, Fannin County. His music was first to what we know today as country music. He and his daughter, Rosalie, also known as Moonshine Kate, were the first stars. Ray Charles was born Ray Charles Robinson in Albany, was blinded by glaucoma when he was 6. His mother insisted that he learn to do everything a sighted child would do. She said that he was blind, not stupid. Dropped last name to avoid confusion with Sugar Ray Robinson. A series of hits, but the one performed the most was George on My Mind, which was made the state song in 1979. And finally, Richard Perriman, better known as Little Richard, the king of rock and roll from Macon, famous for songs Tutti Frutti, Long Tall Sally, Lucille, and Good Golly Miss Molly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We still got lots of people. Representative Mary Frances Williams, can you do yours in about 30 seconds? Seriously, we're already past 8 minutes. We've got a long, long day.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to take a few minutes, but I'll take 30 seconds to just say how much I admire and respect Martha Wigton, head of the House Budget Office, and Budget Chairman Terry England. They're both really hardworking, terrific people. I wanted to say that Chairman England is one of the hardest working legislators I've ever encountered. He and the late Senator Jack Hill have always had that in common. And Chairman England is also such a kind and humble man, regardless of the power and influence of his position, which is huge. Because of the way he is in and around the Capitol and on the House floor, you'd never know that he is one of the most powerful legislators in the building. What I really want to say that Chairman England, in my opinion, thinks in terms of people and not party. And I hope he's forgiven me for running as a Democrat. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right, that's it for morning orders today. What purpose does Chairman Jay Collins rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
To recommit, to bring Senate Bill 183 off of the table and recommit to the Rules Committee.
Chairman. Chairman Collins has moved that Senate Bill 183 be taken off the table and recommitted to the Rules Committee. Clerk will read the caption.
Senate Bill 183 to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 16, Title 15 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions regarding sheriffs so as to revise qualification requirements for the office of sheriff.
Is there any objection to the gentleman's motion? Chair hears none, and it is off the table and on its way back to rules. That's Senate Bill 183. All right, we're going to go to the rules calendar for a little bit. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 84.
Senate Bill 84 by Senator Albers, the 56, Harper, the 7th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 17 to Title 47 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to the Peace Officers Annuity and Benefit Fund so as to provide that certain communication officers shall be eligible for membership in such fund. This bill has been assigned to the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security and then to Retirement. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Camp to present the bill.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, and thank you, colleagues. It's pretty exciting to be the first person on the rules calendar on Sine Die, right? So we're kicking it off. This bill, SB 84, is a bill that's kind of important to me because it talks about communications officers. When we call 911, we have the belief that there's going to be a qualified individual on the other end of the phone that's going to help us get the help we need, right? So this bill is great because this is one important link in the chain of public safety that really had not been addressed. This bill will allow those communications officers who are in compliance with Georgia Peace Officer Standards and Training Council, they can become a member of the Peace Officers Annuity Benefit Fund. And at that point, if they wish, they can become a member where they pay into that fund $25 monthly and can be part of their pension fund. This bill does not have any fiscal impact as far as it goes on this legislature because 0.75% of the money that comes on your phone bill every month, that $1.50 is what will be funding this. I ask for your favorable consideration. And
you have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of Senate Bill 84. The ayes are 161. The nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 505.
Senate Bill 505 by Senator Robertson, the 29th, and Mullis, the 53rd, and others, be entitled an act to amend Code Section 35-823, 38-3, 181, and 46-5, 138.2 the official code of Georgia annotated relating to basic training courses for communications officers. This bill having referred to the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Chairman Gaines to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning I am proud to present Senate Bill 505, which requires new 911 operators to be trained in TCPR, which allows them to provide CPR over the phone. And this measure is particularly important to me. This fall, my dad had a heart attack, and it was a massive heart attack. Luckily, he was at the hospital when he had that heart attack, and was able to get in the cath lab within 15 minutes. He was blessed. He's a doctor in Athens, and was able to get there. But if it had been 3 hours later and he had been in the car, he was supposed to be in the car on the way to a wedding in a rural area, he probably would not be with us today. And so we were very lucky. But I think that's the importance of a bill like this, to make sure that if you call 911, that they're able to train, they're able to administer CPR over the phone in life-saving situations. And so that's what this bill does. I saw an article on 11 Alive that said that hairstylists in the state of Georgia are required to get 37 times more continuing education than our 911 operators. And so this bill is going to be life-saving. Many of the larger counties already have this. This is for new 911 operators, and I really believe this is going to be a life-saving measure. Mr. Speaker, I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Looks like you do have a question.
I'll yield.
Chair recognizes Representative Walensky to your left for a question.
Thank you, Speaker. Does the representative yield?
I will.
It may be in another code section or in this section, but does it limit the liability of those 911 operators if they're helping somebody and the person doesn't live?
My understanding is they already have that. It's not related to this bill, but yes, my understanding is they do already have that.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the will and ask for the body's favorable consideration.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of Senate Bill 505, the ayes are 164, the nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 277.
Senate Bill 277 by Senator Mullis, 53rd, Harper the 7th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 4, Chapter 11, Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to carrying and possession of firearms, so as to extend the exemptions from weapon carry laws to certain court officials to include carrying inside of a courthouse. This bill having referred to Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative Crowe to present the bill. Representative Crowe. Going once, twice. Got a long day. All right, Senate Bill 277 will be taken up later today. Later today. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 516.
Senate Bill 516 by Senator Robertson, the 29th, Mullis, the 53rd, and others to be entitled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 2, Chapter 8 of Title 12, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions of solid waste management. This bill having referred to the Committee on Ways and Means, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative Buckner to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is now a combination of two bills in Section 1.2. It is the bill that we passed out of here on the 15th of March with a vote of 165 to 0 that would dedicate the hazardous waste fees that are collected to the Hazardous Waste Trust Fund so they could be used to clean up hazardous waste sites across the state. The new part, or the other part of the bill that does have some changes, is in Section 2.2. It is Senate Bill 516, and it is different from the original version in that the scrap tire fees will be collected by the retailer, and then they will be collected by the Department of Revenue at the time that sales tax is remitted to the Department of Revenue. So that's what the bill does, and if there are any questions, I would yield for them at this time.
You have no questions.
Thank you. I ask for your favorable consideration.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of Senate Bill 516. The ayes are 169. The nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 1103.
House Resolution 1103 by Representative Newton of the 123rd and others, a resolution urging the Biden administration to remove its veto and reapprove Georgia's Medicaid expansion waiver. This resolution having been referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services. That committee recommends that this resolution be adopted.
Chair recognizes Chairman Newton to present the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know we have lots of important legislation to pass. I kind of want to give you a brief what, where, and why on why we would pass a resolution. As we all know, since legislation was passed and signed in 2014, only the legislature can expand Medicaid in Georgia. Only the legislature can expand Medicaid in Georgia. I want to thank this House for passing on March 26, 2019, with bipartisan support, SB 106, the Patients First Act, which expanded Medicaid assistance for the first time to some of the neediest of Georgians, to able-bodied adults under the poverty level, along with elements designed to help them have a pathway out of poverty. This legislation was signed by the governor the next day, March 27, 2019, following which his team initiated the waiver approval process with the Federal Health and Human Services Department, resulting in it being approved in October of 2020. Unfortunately, in February of 2021, just before implementation, this approval was vetoed by the new administration in the District of Columbia. Tens of thousands of the neediest of Georgians would be receiving medical assistance from their fellow citizens today, assistance with both physical health care and mental health care, but for this veto. This resolution simply respectfully requests that the Biden administration remove its veto and allow Georgia's responsible and efficient Medicaid expansion that's already been passed to proceed. Next, the where, this resolution, I know it was a good question asked in rules today about where do these go. This resolution will go to the administration along with the Department of Health and Human Services, to Secretary Becerra, but in addition, it'll go to each of our senators and all our congressmen and women to ask them to get behind this. And finally, the why, probably most important, because the Department of Community Health here in Georgia has confirmed that with removal of the veto and reapproval, medical and mental health care could be provided for these neediest of Georgians in just 8 weeks. In just 8 weeks, not next year sometime, not a year or two in the future when we all have legislation we might want to pass to change things. I hope we can all come together and get this care to Georgians by June of this year by urging you to support H.R. 1103. I'd be glad to answer any questions, Mr. Speaker.
You have a lot of questions.
I'll take one. We're a busy day, yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Dale Washburn to your left for a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
I will.
Is it not true that if the president would remove this veto, that many, many poor Georgians would benefit from it almost immediately, and that also our rural hospitals would benefit from this as well?
Well, there's two steps to that. You asked kind of two questions. I'm not naive enough to think that telling a hospital every time they spend $1, Medicaid will give them 83 cents is necessarily the best way to get out of challenges in our rural areas. So I'm not sure I agree on that. But I will say that by getting confirmation that in mid-June of this year, people across Georgia, the neediest under the poverty level, could be getting assistance with, when they get out of prison, like we heard about our mental health challenges in prison, when they're finally on medication and maybe off substances, but maybe all they can do is volunteer. Maybe they aren't eligible to get a job. I think by the fact that they could be getting assistance by June of this year and not sometime next year or in the future, I hope that's enough that we can all come together again in a bipartisan way and pass this resolution.
Thank you for the clarification and the answer.
Thank you, sir. I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Chair recognizes Representative Wilson to speak to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, we passed the governor's waiver request at the very beginning of his administration. You'll remember that. And I, along with a lot of my colleagues, opposed that measure for two reasons. The first one was clear, because when we ran the numbers, it was crystal clear. Governor Kemp's waiver would cost more to cover fewer people than if we just fully expanded Medicaid. It just didn't make economic sense. The second reason was because of the work requirements. We knew that they would be added to Medicaid eligibility under this waiver plan, and that it would mean denying eligibility for Georgians too sick or unable to work. Considering that the intent of the Medicaid program is to expand access to health care and not restrict access, work requirements also didn't make sense. But more than that, we knew that when the governor presented his waiver request that were going to include work requirements, we knew that the work requirements at the time had been ruled unconstitutional by multiple federal courts and were bound to be struck down. So it wasn't economically prudent, it didn't make moral sense, but it also didn't make any sense for efficiency reasons. So why are we here today with this urging resolution? Why are we here on this measure? I'll tell you why we're here. Because time is up for this governor. It's the last day of the last session for this governor. Since we passed his bill to let him get started on this waiver over 3 years ago, not a single Georgian has benefited from any of its promised benefits. And yet you want to blame President Biden? He didn't make our governor include these unconstitutional requirements in the original request. In fact, I'll tell you, in fact, President Biden passed the American Rescue Plan, which is funding all of our pay raises and tax cuts this year. He even included enough financial incentives for full Medicaid expansion that it would be fully paid for 2 years. Georgia would net $700 million and create 64,000 jobs right here in Georgia. More jobs, I will tell you, more jobs created than people the governor's waiver plan would have gotten on Medicaid. So what are we doing here? This resolution is passing the buck yet again and insulting the intelligence of Georgians. I ask you to vote to oppose it, and I'll yield for any questions, Mr. Speaker.
You have a question if you care to yield.
I yield.
Chair recognizes Chairman Hawkins to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
Very compelling speech, but isn't it true that those that are aged and disabled in this state are already covered on the ABD Medicaid rolls we presently have? Isn't that true?
Can you say that again, sir?
That the people that are aged and sick are already covered under ABD, age blind disabled, presently on Medicaid in this state. Isn't that true?
The question with this resolution, though, is are we going to cover more people in Georgia? And as policymakers, we've got to decide what makes the most prudent sense based on fiscal conservatism, right? Making sure that we're covering the most Georgians as efficiently as possible.
Does the gentleman yield?
I'll yield for one more.
Thank you. Didn't you say, though, that we had to cover full Medicaid coverage to cover those age blind disabled? Didn't I hear you say that?
I don't believe I said that.
You did. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, I know there are some other speakers that want to speak
You
on
have a
this.
number of other questions, but it's up to you.
I'll yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Chair recognizes Representative Bodie to speak to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, I was not going to be coming to the well, but when I saw this resolution, I was just appalled that we, on day 40, are addressing a political football for the governor of this state. The governor of this state is utilizing this bill or this urgent resolution to basically say that it is the fault of the Democratic president of these United States that he, back in 2018 or 2019, his first session, did not do what the Democrats told him to do. We said, Democrats in this House said, if you pass this waiver under the 138 poverty rate at the federal level, it's going to fail. We told you all this, and it did fail. So why are we here now saying, oh, I can't believe President Biden did this? Let me just read this for you. I want to get right to the point. Back in June of 2019, the Trump administration rejected Utah's request for partial Medicaid expansion. Wow. That was a Republican governor in Utah, a Republican General Assembly, and nothing happened. So Democrats say that, hey, if you do go down this route, the Trump administration is going to reject your waiver. But Trump is not in office. So Biden did basically the same thing Trump did. It said if you're not going to go up to the 138 poverty level, it's not going to cut it. And Democrats in this House told you that the best you could do under the waiver of Brian Kemp is 80,000 people would be covered. But if you fully expand Medicaid, you'll be up to at least 500,000 or 600,000. I mean, is it me or does the math not add up? So, Republicans, I dare you come to this well and chastise my President Biden, who wants to do the right thing by the citizens of not only the state of Georgia, but of these United States of America. You failed. And now you want to blame someone else, Governor Kemp. Own up to what you did. You knew you weren't going to get it done in 2019, and now you want to put it on the back of my president. No, sir, no way. Expand Medicaid today and do the right thing and take care of Georgians and stop trying to hide behind your office on the second floor. If you want to run, run, but run on your record and not on ours. I'll yield the well.
All right, we have one other member that wished to be heard. Chair recognizes the Speaker Pro Tem of the House to speak to the resolution.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just
All
wanted
right, lady will suspend. We're not at a rally. Okay? Lady may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, let me point out, I am not running statewide. I'm running for re-election as a state representative, so my comments will be spoken from that perspective as a state representative. Georgia is a very generous state when it comes to a safety net. First of all, almost 2 million Georgians are on Medicare, so they're taken care of with regards to their health care. More than 2 million Georgians are on Medicaid and Peach Care, partially funded by state taxpayers. That includes 80% of all Georgians living in a nursing home and it pays for 50% of all births. I call that very generous. And I heard about economic sense. It doesn't make economic sense not to expand charitable health care, which is what Medicaid is. Well, you know, that's true if your definition of economics means the government printing more money. Georgia, while other states that have expanded charitable health care, also called Medicaid, have been rolling back their reimbursement rates to providers because, you know, there's only so much money. Georgia has a record since the expansion of Medicaid of increasing its provider rates, which has increased the number of providers that accept Medicaid. And we've also expanded the services to potential Medicaid patients to take care of the least of ours, including pregnant mothers and other such services, HIV patients, and different, including this year. I heard about fiscal conservatism. Fiscal conservatism doesn't mean necessarily providing more charitable health care to able-bodied persons. Fiscal conservatism means a safety net to the least among us, not a hammock. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
That completes all the members who wish to speak. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this resolution now be adopted? All those in favor of the adoption of the resolution will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Anulowicz rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Thank you. Is it not true that the work requirement in the governor's exemption application makes no exemptions for full-time caregivers? And is it not further true that if we learned one thing from the pandemic, it's that caregiving obligations are a big factor in keeping able-bodied workers out of the workplace?
If the lady so states, I'm sure she believes that. What purpose does Representative Lott rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that those individuals in Georgia above 100% of the federal poverty line qualify for insurance on the private marketplace rather than flooding the currently overrun Medicaid system that we have with few providers, and that between the 100 and 150% of the federal poverty line, while on private individual marketplace insurance, the cost to the patient would be $0?
The lady so states, I'm sure she believes that to be true. What purpose does the leader of the minority caucus, Leader Beverly, rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that the sovereign monetary policy of the United States require that we print money to cover the debt ceiling we accrue as a result of serving the people of these great United States?
Well, I hope they're printing a lot of money, because we sure are going in debt a lot of money. So, but I'm sure the gentleman believes that to be true. All right. What purpose does Chairman Todd Jones rise? He waves. What purpose does Chairman Carpenter rise?
Parliamentary
inquiry. State your inquiry.
Is it not true that believing in consistent federal funding for Medicaid is like trusting a local drug dealer not to short the product?
The gentleman so states. I'm sure that's the way he understands it to be true. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the adoption of House Resolution 1103. The ayes are 97, the nays are 73. This resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. What purpose does the chairman of the Rules Committee rise?
To make a motion?
State your motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Senate Rules Committee Chairman's Bill SR 504 and Senate Bill, 364 be recommitted to rules.
Is this his going away present or something?
I hope so.
All right, we have two different bills that are subject to the motion. Let's vote them separately. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Resolution 504.
Senate Resolution 504 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd and Hatch of the 50th and others, recognizing the significant role that Native American tribes have played in Georgia in dedicating a tree on the state capitol grounds in their honor.
On the motion of the Rules Chairman that Senate Resolution 504 be recommitted to rules, is there any objection to the gentleman's motion? There is objection. All those in favor of recommitting SR 504 to the Rules Committee will vote aye. Those opposed to recommitting will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the gentleman's motion that SR 504 be recommitted to rules. The ayes are 100, the nays are 67, and that bill is on its way back to the Rules Committee. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 364.
Senate Bill 364 by Senator Tillery, the 19th Brass, the 28th, and others, being entitled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 2 of Title 46 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions relative to telephone services.
On the motion by the Rules Chairman that Senate Bill 364 be recommitted to the Rules calendar, or back to the Rules Committee, is there any objection? Chair hears none, and that one is on its way back to Rules. This House will come to order. Chair is going to ask all members of the House to please take a seat. Before the chair introduces the next member, chair recognizes the Minority Caucus leader, Leader Beverly, to speak to the next special order. Leader Beverly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you see a turtle on a fence post, I won't. You know he or she did not get there on their own. And I believe that to be true for about 7 or 8 years, sitting beside the dean. And about 3 years ago, I saw a turtle climbing a fence. And for a brief moment in time, that turtle was sitting on top of a fence post, but I watched him until he jumped off and fell. Well, he actually fell on the other side. And I was like, maybe a turtle did climb a fence post. Maybe he wasn't put there on his own. But what I learned from that is that what Representative Smiley, the dean, has showed me is that everyone has a perspective. Everyone has a perspective. He has given me the grace, and our caucus the grace, to accept whatever defects I have. Whatever defects we have, we own them. And whatever accomplishments that we will achieve in this life, they belong to God's alone. He has a perspective to go down to Brunswick when Ahmaud Arbery was murdered. He had the perspective to teach us how to go through reapportionment with our heads up, even though local control seemed to disappear right in front of us. He has a perspective to vote on the budget. I think there's only one that he's never voted for, and I think I had something to do with that. And I apologize because he's like, House first, you second. We have been in negotiations ad nauseum around sports betting, medical marijuana, hate crimes, the budget, and on and on and on. And the one thing that he has always given me is perspective. And he's done that for all of us. So if you see a turtle on a fence post, you know that he or she did not get there alone. And Dean Smiley has allowed us all to sit on a fence post from time to time. I'm going to miss you, my dear brother. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
There come those times that you don't really look forward to. And I've cried about today. I've been happy about today. I've cried because of of being selfish and knowing that I will not have my friend here on a daily basis. I've cried for the loss to this house of one of the greatest that's ever walked through these halls. But I've been happy because I know that he is capping off a very distinguished career of public service in a very distinguished way. You know, since I came into this position, I cannot remember. I've tried to remember now for a few weeks a significant issue that Dean Smiley has not been there to be a rock to lean on, a source of wisdom. You know, we can't tell all the times we've talked, I guess, till we write our books, right? But so many times, saving hope, the transportation funding reform bill, criminal justice reform, hate crimes, citizens arrest, and expansion of gaming. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I don't have the words to say how much he has meant, but he always did it with a spirit of trying to find a consensus, and he always did it with civility. Many, many times he has been the calming influence on the waters when the storms were kind of raging around us. I thought of today, and I thought of the passage from Matthew. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. It's my honor at this time to recognize for a special order a special child of God, Dean Calvin Smyrie.
All right. Oh, boy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank you for your kind comments and your kind remarks, and I appreciate that. I appreciate your friendship, your leadership, and so today has been one that I kind of dreaded. Carolyn Hughes gave me this, so I'm going to have to pull it out with her. But it has arrived. Sine Die, 2022. So, Mr. Speaker, David Ralston, Speaker Pro Tem Jan Jones, Majority Leader John Burns, Whip Mac Hatchett, Chairman Bonnie Rich, and other officers of the Majority Caucus, Minority Leader James Beverly, Whip David Wilkerson, Chairman Billy Mitchell, my seatmate, all of the other officers serving in the Democratic Caucus, my Columbus delegation, Chairman Richard Smith, Representative Carolyn Hughley, Representative Debbie Buckner, Representative Van Smith, ladies and gentlemen of the House. I rise to address you on my final morning order. For the past 48 years, the citizens of Columbus have allowed me to represent them in this House chamber, the Georgia House of Representatives. What an honor and joy it has been for me. I thought qualifying week was going to be rough, but this is the toughest moment. And I had not planned on going down to room 230 on qualifying, but I went with Representative Carolyn Hughley to see her qualify, and it made my day go better. Today is more difficult because after 48 years of serving in this chamber, I will not be returning. To this hallowed chamber for another legislative session. I'm honored that some of my family members are here. My father is 96 years old. Carter Smyrie. Turn around so they can see it. PJ, thank you for being here. I appreciate this very much. Two of my deceased sister, two of her children are here. Robbie Branscombe, thank you for being here. Robbie is my executive assistant at my office in Synovus. Francine Foster, thank you for being here, Francine. And my two grandchildren. As you know, I lost my daughter in December of last year, and I want them to be here, Javon and Morgan. So will y'all give them a round of applause? Thank you. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Thank you very much. How did my journey and story start? In 1966, I graduated from Frankfurt American High School in Frankfurt, Germany. My grandfather and father both were career military veterans. My grandfather was a master sergeant in the 24th Regiment, and my father was a helicopter pilot and retired as a chief warrant officer. I'm proud of my father because he was a mechanic in the United States Army, and he worked on helicopters. He got out of the Army, went to officers training school, and became a pilot and flew helicopters for the United States Army. The military was not for me. When I was in Germany, my father, when I was growing up, he used to dress me in Army uniforms all the time, you know. And I said, Dad, I don't want to be in the Army. And he said, you going into the Army, boy. You going about your business. So unbeknownstly, he worked a way for me to go to Morgan State, to ROTC school. So we sent the application, and he sent one to Tuskegee, and then he sent one to Clark. And of course, in Germany, we got back, and neither school had received my SAT, nothing from either school, and that's the mail for you, you know, to Germany. And so a friend of mine, a friend of my father's, lived down the street, Dr. Robert Threet, who went on to become, as you know, president of Morris Brown College. So we went down to his house, and he said, let's take him down to Fort Valley. And that's where I entered Fort Valley, and Fort Valley changed my life, I owe a lot to Fort Valley State University, and all of you all know how much I love Fort Valley. Right, Chairman England? I love Fort Valley State University. And I didn't do well. Well, you go to school to study, and I kind of got a little wavered. So I was in my last semester. I was taking a 3-hour course and a 5-hour course, physical science. And so I ran to the physical science, and I asked Dr. Steele, I said, what's he? He said, well, you got a B+ yet. I don't know what your problem is. So I went up to this business school. My major was business, well, mine in economics. And my instructor said, sit down for just a minute. She said, you know what? I met a lot of people, but you got it. You just got it. But you just don't know what to do with it. Now, you got it, so, but maybe during summer school, you'll find yourself. I said, you don't know my mother and father. Now, please don't do that. I'm the first married to graduate. Don't do that to me. And a football player came by who was a minister now, Reverend Dawson. We went in there together, and we both left crying, and she wouldn't change it. So I went to summer school and then realized that the course was not going to be offered in Fort Valley. It was going to be offered at University of Wisconsin. I said, oh my Lord, how am I going to get up there? And he said, you can take it correspondently. Now for young people now, you can take anything on the internet. But back then, it was a courier. So I couriered my lesson back and forth and took the course and made a B+ through the mail. Could have made an A in the classroom. So one summer, I was in the library, and I ran across a poem called The Guy in the Glass. If you read the AJC's paper today, Maya did a profile on me, and that was the nucleus of the story. And that poem changed my life. It states, I'm going to do a short version of it. When you get what you want in your struggle for self and the world makes you king for a day, then go to a mirror and look at yourself and see what that guy has to say. You may be like Jack Hall and Chisholm on the plum and think you're a wonderful guy, but the man in the glass says you're only a bum if you can't look him straight in the eye. You can fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward would be heartache and tears if you cheat the guy in the glass. I told myself then, never ever would I cheat myself. If I say I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a good doctor. If I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a good lawyer. If I'm going to teach school, I'm going to teach school. But if I be a street sweeper, I'm going to sweep streets good. And that changed my trajectory. That changed my life. And I came home to Columbus, and no jobs, of course, you finish in December. And, but I started an organization called LOT. You're familiar with it. Leaders of Today and Tomorrow. And I found the 20 brightest young people I could find, 22, 23, 24, 25, you're my age. And we met with all the leaders we were the leaders of tomorrow, we met with all the leaders of today. And my father knew a lot of them. And one of them was the vice mayor of Columbus, and A.J. McClung, he mentored me for many, many years. And so we met, and we met, and we met. And eventually, I was appointed to the Medical Center Board of Trustees, the first African-American, taking the place of a gentleman who had retired. And thereafter, I still looking for a job, so I'm gonna have to leave Columbus and move to Atlanta to get a job. So AJ and George Ford told me, this is my first test of politics, said, meet us at the Labor Department. I said, what's going on? He said, we're gonna get you a job down there. And so went to meet them at the Labor Department, went in, and I'll never forget it, Dorothy Bass looked at him and said, we don't have any openings. Said, we'll take his application. And Mr. McClung said, get Commissioner Sam Caldwell on the phone. I said, what, you want me to call the commissioner? And he said, yeah, call the commissioner. So the commissioner answered the phone and said, hey, Jay and George, how y'all doing? I said, we got a young man down here in Columbus. We're gonna get him involved in politics, but he needs a job to stay here. Well, we ought to be able to work that out. So you got a Bible in the room? And I'm just sitting there as a young 23-year-old, not knowing what the heck's going on. And he said, young man, put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. He said, do you solemnly swear to keep the whole laws of the state of Georgia, so help me God? I said, I do. He said, welcome to the Labor Department. and I said, what about the state merit exam? He said, son, you're in politics now, don't ask so many questions. That was a Friday. He said, go to work on Monday. And I went to work on Monday, went to work for the Labor Department, and stayed there for about 6 or 8 months. And then went to work for GMAC and ultimately to Synovus. And during that time, we were meeting, and Albert Thompson, who was a chairman of Special Judiciary here in this house, and he was talking to us. Our group was meeting with him. He said, one of y'all ought to run for the state legislature. And I said, no, we're not getting into politics. I saw what politics is all about when I got my job. I said, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna do community and public service. And so we left his office, and my mentor, A.J. McClung, called me to his house. We lived in the subdivision out in the county. He lived in the subdivision across from us. And he said, you know what, you ought to run. And I said, let me think about it. He said, no, you ought to run. And in fact, you gonna run. And of course, the vice mayor of Columbus, Georgia, was talking to me, and so I did run, and it changed my life. And I had a great group of people to help me, and there were 5 of us in the race, and I won without a runoff. I was just blown aback. But it reminds me of that quote, plant seeds to trees for the shade you may never see. And that's what we did. We planted seeds to a tree for the shade we may never see. And I said then that I was going to come up here and do the best I could. And those that helped me along the way. And I almost was coming up here, and then one of my opponents filed a suit. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court. And I'll never forget, Constagian Smith law firm here in Atlanta, Keegan Federal was my lawyer, and went before the Supreme Court. And I was sworn in prior to it, and the Supreme Court ruled it a moot issue, and then I went on to serve. So, but my people that helped me along the way, Benny Newroth, Robert Anderson, Dan Dolman, Howard Pendleton, the late Scott Wise. Benny Newroth and Howard Pendleton and I, as Karen Hugel will tell you, we communicate on a daily basis. They're going to either call me or text me every day. And some days I don't respond. But it was their idea. And one of y'all, you might want to try this. It said, Smyra for District 92. I had about 2,000 yard signs out. And then on the election eve, they changed the yard sign to vote Smyra today. That's pretty clever. You got a yard sign in your yard, Smyra for District 92, and then the next morning you wake up, vote Smyra today. And that went over pretty well, and I appreciate them and the impact that they've had on my life. For the past 48 years, I have worn this name badge as a badge of honor. Over the years, I've had many, many leadership positions and titles, but being called Dean of this house, while it is the least of power, it is the one I admired the most. And I appreciate the Speaker, and I'm deeply honored to Speaker David Ralston for bestowing that recognition and honor to me. Since elected to this House, I have seen and witnessed a lot. After being elected in 1975, I've had only 3 opponents in 48 years, 2 Democrats and 1 Republican. In fact, at one point, I ran 15 consecutive times without opposition in the Democratic or the Republican primary, 30 years, which is a long, long time. That's 30 years without opposition. Now that I reflect back, I consider that quite a feat. I have seen and witnessed a lot. Our state has made much progress, and we have made positive gains. In 1975, this House was a different place to serve. I've seen great strides in diversity, and diversity is hard. But since I was elected in 1974 at the age of 27, in my first term, there were only 19 African Americans serving in this body. Today, there are 52. There were only 8 women. 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 women in the House in 75. Today, there are 62 women. Which represent diversity as well as members of the LGBTQ community. By far, better diversity. It makes this House looks like and represents Georgia. Yes, you have added it up. In 1975, the People's House was made up of 172 men and 8 women. I want to recognize that we've come a long way, and we ought to be proud of where we are as a state. I want to recognize a few people that have helped this turtle get up on the fence post. I warned that out at home. They told me, don't you ever say that in Columbus ever again. Well, y'all have just heard it again, those that are listening. But serving in this House has also allowed me the honor of serving with 5 House speakers: Thomas Murphy, Terry Coleman, Mark Burkhalter, Glenn Richardson, and now Speaker David Ralston. Terry Coleman, I worked well with him, and I want to say this. I thank Terry Coleman for keeping me on as Rules Chairman. Gentlemen, you get a new speaker, you get a new Rules Chairman, and he allowed me to continue on, and he allowed me to continue on as a member of the Budget Conference Committee as well, and I appreciate that. When he became Speaker, my mentor, Tom Buck, became Chairman of the Appropriations Committee, my seatmate. Thomas B. Murphy, he was my friend, and he had an early impact on my political career. I met him in December of 1974 in his office. And you've never been in Tom Murphy's office, it's a treat because it was like a museum. anybody that's been in here serving, and it's at West Georgia now, if you ever get that way. But Albert Thompson set up the appointment. He was chairman of the Special Judiciary Committee, and he told me to go to see Murphy, made an appointment, so I went to him, and I walked, and he said, son, what can I do for you? And I said, well, Representative Thompson said I need to come to you about committee assignments. He said, yep. He said, you're right about that now. He said, I make all the appointments. I said, well, Mr. Speaker, I'm told that. He said, what do you want to be on? I said, appropriations. He said, what? Appropriations? He said, you're a freshman. I said, not only will you not be on appropriation, you won't be in the room when we talking. and he said, what's your next one? I said, Ways and Means. He said, oh my God, who you been talking to? I said, you're a freshman. You don't go no Ways and Means. He said, what about your third? I said, Banks and Banking or Health? He said, oh my goodness, son, I don't know who you've been talking to, but freshmen don't get those committees. But he said, I will look at it and get back with you, and then I got one of them. And then about after the session started, he put his arms around me, and we were somewhere at a reception. He said, you know what? He said, I want you to stay close to me. I kind of like you. I said, what did I do, Mr. Speaker? He said, well, you keep your cards close to your chest. And he said, a little bird told me that you gave me appropriation, Ways and Means as your 1 and 2, and you gave me Banks and Banking and Health as 3. But really, the Banks and Banking and Health was your number 1. So you kind of tricked the guy. And you gave me the 2, you knew I wasn't going to appoint you, so I kind of got soft and gave you the 3rd. So he said, that's pretty clever. So that was my first time to speak, to meet Tom Murphy and have an engagement with him. And after getting appointed to my committee, our first impression was the last impressions, but that started my journey in the House. In 4 years, which was unheard of back then, he appointed me to Ways and Means, Chairman Blackman, my 3rd term. 2 years later, he appointed me to Appropriations Committee. And then I told Chairman England the budget was $4 billion when I went on appropriation. $4 billion, now 30. And so he asked me also to join him in Cartersville. And he said, I said, what's going on there? He said, we're having a little meeting. We going to elect Joe Frank Harris governor. I said, Joe Frank sit behind me? He said, yeah. He said, Scott, you're in Representative Holcomb, you're in my seat. And Fryer is in Joe Frank, and Representative Alexander is in Larry Walker seat. And so I joined them in Cartersville, and Joe Frank Harris was elected governor. And Larry Walker, who was my friend and protege, asked me to serve as assistant floor leader. It's a little bit different nowadays than it was in 1970, 1981 and 82. When Larry Walker became floor leader, he selected the 2 assistant floor leaders, and I was one of the ones he selected. And so I worked with Larry, and then he became majority leader, and then the governor appointed me floor leader, becoming the first African American in the state. And I went to see Speaker Murphy, and I said, Mr. Speaker, I said, the governor, they're going to ask me to serve as floor leader. Oh, you're leaving me, huh? I said, well, I'm going to still be in the House, but the floor leader, they always fight me. And, I said, well, we're gonna work together. I said, can you go along? He said, yep, we're gonna be just like one happy marriage. We're gonna be all right. The first day we introduced the bill was on transportation, and it was Tom Moreland was the commissioner, and he called me up to. I'm just sick of you. Every time I turn around, y'all fight me. And I said, Mr. Speaker, I said, don't do that. You told me it was gonna be one happy marriage. Well, we about to get a divorce, right? right here, right now. And so he left me and went on down to the governor's office and came back. I just talked to your boss and told him the same thing. But we had a great relationship. He was a wonderful man. I always tell people, Joe Frank Harris changed the landscape of Atlanta, Georgia. All you got to do is go back and read the history. He changed it. Georgia World Congress Center, MARTA, the Georgia World Congress Center, the Dome. I mean, these are things that if you run for, if you're in the rural area and you were connected to Atlanta, you know, it wasn't no win, you know, back then. And but he did it, and he's steadfast, and he was very good to me. He and Bill Lee. Bill Lee was the first rules chairman I was on, and Billy Randall and I were on the rules committee together, and a gentleman just came in. Thank you, Senator Lucas. Lucas and I came together in 1966. That was 1975. There was 66 legislators in our class. 66, 1/3 of the General Assembly. So thank you, Senator Lucas. I appreciate you and your friendship. Thank you very much for being here. But the speaker is just, he and Bill Lee were connected, and so we went back in Speaker Ralston's conference room one day, about 5 or 6 of us in there, Tom Buck, Bill Lee, Terry Coleman, and myself, because the speaker allowed me to sit with the conferees for 10 years. When the conferees come from 403, come down his conference room, I sat down on the inside and watched them do the budget. I was not on the conference committee, but I sat there for nearly 10 years. So when he finally appointed me to the conference committee, I was very, very prepared. But on the rules, one day we were sitting back there, and Bill Lee came in and said, in 1990, said, I'm getting ready to retire, Mr. Speaker. He said, man, I got to find a rules committee chairman. And we were just sitting in the conference room, and Terry Coleman and Tom Buck said, Mr. Speaker, that's your rule chairman right there. He said, who? He said, you mean Calvin? and I thought I was in good stead with him, and they said, yeah, he can do the job. And that's how I was appointed rules chairman. And Speaker Murphy and I had just a great relationship. In fact, at one time, I was chair of the Rules Committee, chairman of the Democratic House Caucus, chairman of the Democratic Party, and a member of the Conference Budget Committee all at the same time. 4 years of that. And one day I said, Mr. Speaker, I said, this is a heavy load. I said, maybe somebody else can do one of these jobs. He said, when I wake up in the morning, son, I don't have to call but 2 people, and you one of them. I said, who's the other one? He said, Terry Coleman, the chairman of the Appropriations Committee. If you know where the money is and where the bills are, you have a pretty good day as a speaker. And so it stayed that way. But he was just a wonderful person, and I miss him, and I appreciate all the contributions that he made to my career. Speaker David Ralston. First and number one, he is my friend. We are from different political parties, but we share a common bond. As you know, a lot of y'all may recall, I was nominated for Speaker as chairman of the Minority Caucus and lost 116 to 58. Not a close race, to Speaker Ralston. Losing the votes of 11 Democrats. I was disappointed, but I understood. 30 minutes went by, and I forgot they even voted against me. Because the person you're angry with on Monday, you may need them on Thursday. Hello, somebody. The object of this game is 91 and 120. Ain't no else way you can shake it or bake it. That's it. You can't find 90 people, then it's, you talking, but you just kicking the can. If you find 90, then you filling the can. And I've tried to be one to fill the can. But Speaker Ralston, in his address, he stated this, and I quote, "We are at a point that is both unprecedented and unexpected. As a House and state, we face great challenges. There will no doubt be obstacles thrown in our path. but I truly believe this chamber is filled with good leaders. Public service is both noble and honorable. I also promise a new beginning with the city of Atlanta. Atlanta has a new leader, and I promise to work with the city and move all of Georgia forward. I said in my speech, and I quote, "I don't expect to win today by popular vote, but the mere fact that I am a candidate is a victory for democracy and the minority party. Spoils go to the winner, but whether you win or you lose, politics ought to be about being open and participatory politics and policy. I don't suffer from the illusion of inclusion, but I do expect the decency of participating in this house. No one can break your back unless you bend it. So I intend on standing strong, and I will continue to stand for what I believe in and forever honor the institution of this house, which I serve." While we were friends prior to that Monday, January 12th, 2010, that day seemed to have made our friendship more of a fixture. We would go forward and for the next 12 years would work on many transformational issues for our state. The Transportation Act of 2015 tested our relationship. Jay Roberts and Mark Hamilton and I were in the office, and we had the bill there, and Carolyn Hughley and Al Williams and Stacey Abrams and 2 or 3 others walked into my office and CLOB and said, "We need to talk to you." I said, "What's that?" I said, "We need for you not to sign the transportation bill." I said, "Excuse me?" I said, "The speaker wants me to sign that bill." And said, "If you sign the bill, it will give the signal because of your bandwidth. But we need to be able to negotiate and work this together with the Republican and with the minority." I went back to see the speaker and told him that I thought our friendship was about to be torn apart. But he looked at me, and I said this to him. I said, "Do you trust me?" I said, "Do you trust me?" His words to me, "I trust you." I said, "I'll see you at Sine Die." And we worked together, both sides of the aisle, and we worked of a Transportation Act. And to me, the Transportation Act is transformational. It has made this state, we used to run transportation on continual resolution from the United States Congress. Now we have money that we can 10-year plan. And to me, that is a great thing for the state of Georgia. And on the last day of Sine Die, he gave me a lot of recognition of being one of the ones that helped pass the transportation bill. And I appreciate that. For I worked very hard with Jay Roberts and with Mark Hamilton and the Transportation Committee. I was not on transportation. He didn't know it till last year. He said, "We got a transportation bill coming." I said, "I'm not on the Transportation Committee." He said, "Oh my Lord, I didn't know that." And Rick Jasper said, "He's not on this committee." And then the speaker said, "Well, I'm putting him on there now." So I've been on transportation for 1 year, but after all of the transit bill and everything else, but I'm finally on it. Because the permanent transit funding, in fact, I called the speaker one day. I said, "Mr. Speaker," I said, "we ought to do something about transit in this state." I said, "Far too long. Transit is a quality of life issue. It affects a lot of people in their livelihood." And he said, "What you got in mind?" I said, "Put $200 million in the budget." He looked at me. He said, "You need to go see the governor about that, $200 million. So I went to see the governor. Told the governor the same thing, and I was surprised because the speaker was kind of positive about it. And Deal looked at me and said, "We'll do $100 million. I said, "200 million. He said, "No," he said, "50 million. And he went down on me. I said, "100 million. He said, that's why I was in the first place." I said, "Okay." So he put $100 million in the budget. So one morning my phone rang. It was Speaker Ralston. "You need to see the governor." I said, "What's going on?" He said, I'd rather for him to tell you." And so I called the governor, and they wanted to use $25 million for economic development, but we had planned that the $75 million was all we could use through the transit system anyway. So we're able to get $75 million for transit for the first time through bond. And then the speaker said, "You know what, we ought to find a way to fund transit, period. And thus 511 and Kevin Tanner and those that helped out in that regard. And now we have a bill where transit is funded for the first time. You can't think about that. All these years we never funded transit in the state of Georgia. But thanks to this gentleman behind me, David Ralston, we now fund transit. And thanks to all of you, and to me, that's a quality of life. The hate crime bill, Wendell Willard, Chuck Estration, Karen Bennett, Megan Hanson. I remember driving to Brunswick, and I talked halfway to this gentleman right here, one of my best friends that I have in life, Al Williams. And we talked about it, and we drove in different cars. Representative Hugh was on her way, I was on my way. It was in the thick of COVID. I didn't think I was going to go, but I woke up in the morning, I said, I gotta go to Brunswick. She had already left. And I drove down there, and on the way, Gloria Frazier, Representative Frazier called me, and she was with the mother of Armand Arbery, Wanda Cooper. And we talked for a few minutes and about the situation. And my first call was to Speaker David Ralston. I said, we need to do something about citizen arrest. He said, well, we got to first pass hate crime. And so we did pass hate crimes, and then first thing I did, I called Armand Arbery and mother, Representative Hogan, and I told her that I make you a promise. We get past hate crime, we're going to take citizen arrest the next year. And I said, I promise you that. I give you my word. And lo and behold, I see the speaker, and he is in agreement, and we passed the Citizens Act and citizen arrest. And thanks to Governor Kemp and Burt Reeves and William Bodie and many, many others. The Atlanta airport, this was a major issue for me in the city of Atlanta. We were able to stop that situation. Cannabis, medical marijuana. When Alan Peake called me maybe 7, 8 years ago and asked me to sign a bill, I told him I wouldn't. And I just got my plate full, and then he told me one day to go to a mall just to see, and I saw parents going to cars buying from the black market cannabis oil. And by that time, this gentleman right here, Michael Gravely, was taking on the issue, and I want to tell you that's one of my best joys that I have. Is working with you in passing the medical cannabis bill. That was something that, to me, it was a great deal. And seeing these parents and their eyes and what we were doing for their children, it was just something that, to me, I felt a decency in me, that to be able to do that. And for that, I'm thankful. I'm thankful for the speaker. Speaker Ralston has pointed me to more conference committees than I served as a Democrat. Think about that. Other than the conference budget committee, I was on it every year for 6 years. But any other committees, Ralston had put me on more conference committees than I've served as a Democrat. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the trust and working relationship into serving on the rules, appropriations, higher ed, and transportation. You appointed me to the Georgia World Congress Center Board, the Special Committee on Access to Quality Health Care, the Special Committee on Election Integrity, the Special Committee on Access to Civil Justice System, and the Georgia Freight and Logistics Infrastructure Funding Commission. So I appreciate all that you have done, and I appreciate our friendship, and I'm looking forward to keeping in touch with you as a friend, whatever my road leads me to in the near future. Serving in this House also has allowed me to serve with 7 governors, 4 Democrats, 3 Republicans. George Busby, because George Busby was the first governor that could run for re-election. We had one term. Jimmy Carter was our last one-term governor, and George Busby was the first governor to be able to run for 2 terms. And Joe Frank Harris, Elle Miller, Roy Barnes, Sonny Perdue, Nathan Deal, and now Governor Brian Kemp. Governor Joe Frank Harris, I co-chaired his inauguration. We had a great relationship. I would become his floor leader, and he and I and Larry Walker worked together on a lot of issues, and working for Governor Harris was a wonderful working experience. I was on the QBE Commission to establish the quality-based education here in the state of Georgia. It changed our educational system. I worked with him on passing the legislation to create the Georgia Dome. I was the floor leader at that time and helped work the bill through the House and the Senate. It was a heavy lift and a 2-year journey. And at that time, the dome cost $200 million. Think about that. The one we're looking at now is $1.6 billion. So we built the Falcons' first home was $200 million. That kept the Falcons in Atlanta. And I tell people all the time, and I get a lot of criticism for that, but you lose a professional team. You just lose one and see what happens. You just lose. Every team that has lost one, they know it was just catastrophic for their state. So sometimes we have to make hard decisions, and that was a hard decision, creating a dome stadium for the Atlanta Falcons. And I took a lot of heat from my Columbus delegation members. Might have remembered this, but Miss Georgia's held in Columbus every year, and they were having it at the old municipal auditorium. And it started raining pretty hard, so they had a lot of umbrellas. So as the ladies were walking on stage, they had the umbrellas to hold them. And my Lord, that was a bad picture. So one reporter wrote this. I won't say who his name here. But he said, now, he can build a dome for the Falcons, but he can't build a civic center for a city. Oh my goodness, that hit home hard. The first call I made was to Tom Buck, and the second call I made was to Frank Martin. And that was in 1972. In 1974, we broke ground for a $45 million civic center in Columbus, Georgia. And I was just happy to be at that river cut, to save face with the Columbus people. So now we have one. And the last thing I want to thank Governor Harris for his commitment on the Martin Luther King Jr. birthday, a state holiday. And I stand here today on the birthday, the assassination of Dr. King. Dr. King was assassinated April the 4th, 1960, 54 years ago. So it's apropos. I never met Dr. King. I met Daddy King one time, his father, but I never met Dr. Martin Luther King. In fact, when he was killed, we were summoned to a gym in Fort Valley State University. We had a service there. And, but when we created the State Holiday Commission, Secretary of State Max Cleland was the first chair, and I was his vice chair. And he agreed to only serve for 1 year. And then for 10 years, I chaired the State Holiday Commission, Dr. King's State Holiday Commission, and I got a chance to work very, very closely with his widow, Coretta Scott King. So I want to say today that we appreciate the life and legacy of Dr. King. But the holiday bill, I got a lot of credit for it, but Hosea Williams and Tyrone Brooks for many years introduced the bill. And when Governor Harris became governor, he asked me to do it, and they signed on. And it was a joyous day that I can always remember. And I'm just so happy 38 years now, with your help, we just passed Juneteenth as a state holiday. And once I went over to the Senate, and they presented me with 2 resolutions that allowed me to speak to the Senate. And I thank Lieutenant Governor Duncan for that honor, allowing me to do a farewell address in the state Senate on Friday. Another honor to me that's real difficult for me to describe to you. And the last governor I want to mention is Roy Barnes. Roy and Governor Harris had a luncheon for me approximately 2 weeks ago and invited approximately 12 of senior members back, and we had a great opportunity to chat and to break bread together. And I'm so thankful for that. I was at the Democratic Convention in Los Angeles in 2000, and my phone rang, and it was Governor Barnes saying that when I get back, we're going to change the state flag. And I didn't think much of it at that time. And when we got back, he called me to his office, and I told him that Elle Miller barely won re-election, and he didn't try to pay, he just mentioned it. And he just said, I want to do it. And that I want to do it, he won by 31,000 votes, as Elle Miller did. And, what a profiling courage and conviction. And I'll never forget, I was in Milledgeville and had to get back and got a helicopter to land me on the lawn of the governor's mansion. And I walked in, and the governor was in there with about 12, 15 CEOs of Georgia. He said, "This is the rules chairman here, and we're going to pass the bill out of his committee in the morning." And I said, "Well, I got to talk to Speaker Murphy about that, Governor. I mean, we can't just call him." He said, "I've already talked to the Speaker. He's on board." I said, "Well, I got to contact my committees." He said, "They'll get a memo at 7:30 a.m. And I said, "Well, Governor, that's kind of tough to do." He said, "No, we're doing it in the morning." And I went to 403 and I walked in. I've never seen such a bank of microphones ever in my political career. And we voted the bill out, and I commend Governor Barnes for taking that action. And I worked with him on so many issues, and he was truly blessed for his friendship. The last one I want to mention is Elle Miller. I served in the House with Zell. When Zell was governor, and for the lottery, and I wrote with Governor Miller to buy the first lottery ticket, and I thought that was quite an honor. And but the lottery has changed this state in so many good ways, and all of you all are responsible for that, for these young people getting a college education. Education is the escalator of mobility. It is the key to all keys for people to be a more productive life and live as citizens of the state of Georgia. So the lottery is a good piece. It's something that we need to continue to work on and to work to make it better every day. Serving this House also has allowed me to honor serving with 9 U.S. presidents: Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, George H. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden. And have served with 9 presidents, I said, and I visited with 7 of them in the White House, and I'm deeply honored, both Republican and Democrats. I never forget getting a call from the White House, and Ronald Reagan wanted to meet with a few of us state legislators on welfare reform. And I got criticized by going to meet with the president, but I informed them at that time, if any president calls me, I'm going to see him, period. I don't care who it is. I'm going. If the president of the United States calls you, I'm going. So now if y'all want to keep raising that saying, you can do what you want to do, but it ain't going to change me, not one iota. And I don't care what you do, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to meet with them. So I flew up there and had no shame, and came back and stood in my district like I always do. And I always, when I think about the late George H. Bush, his wife served on our board at the Morehouse School of Medicine, Barbara Bush. And I got to know the Bushes very well. And one day, Dr. Sullivan, we were getting ready for the Morehouse School of Medicine, and he called me and said, "I got a dilemma." I said, "What's the dilemma?" He said, "They want me to second the nomination of President Bush for his nomination at the convention in New Orleans, and I just don't know what Speaker Murphy is going to say." I said, "Can I give you a little advice?" I said, "Don't walk to New Orleans, run." I said, "You let me take care of Speaker Murphy." And I talked to Murphy, and I told him it was the right thing to do, and our president became HHS Secretary, Lou Sullivan, and was a big thing for the state of Georgia. So I'm really pleased with that, and it's been my joy to serve with all of them. And in closing, I just say to you, I consider it an honor. Public service is noble and honorable. And my love is for the Rules Committee, and I've served with Five Rules Chairman Bill Lee, Earl Earhart, John Meadows, Jay Powell, and now Richard Smith from my hometown. And Richard, I want to thank you for all the courtesies you extended to me. And I appreciate that. You and Claire have been dear friends, and I'm very, very thankful for that. Appropriations Committee, I've served with quite a few chairs. Joe Frank Harris, Bubba McDonald, Ben Harbin, Terry Coleman, and Terry England. And Terry, thank you for all that you've done and assisted with me. You've never turned me down. Well, you've turned me down on offers, but you never turned down to meet with me. Yeah, but you hadn't. I don't want to make mistaken that you hadn't turned me down. The conferees, y'all have turned me down. But it's more good than bad, and for that I'm deeply, deeply honored, and I appreciate that. And you all know how much I love Fort Valley State University, and Fort Valley has been great to me, and I thank y'all for the support that you all have given Fort Valley and all the HBCUs here in the state of Georgia through our budgetary process. At the Morehouse School of Medicine, I remember in 1979 when we first talked about Morehouse School of Medicine. And I remember when we appropriated the first million, I wish it was a billion, first $1 million to Morehouse School of Medicine, and your support has been unwavering, and I am thankful for that. The Speaker's Office, thank you very much. Spiro, you've been a friend and a confidant. I appreciate you. For all that, and I know Sundays I would text you on a Sunday and a Saturday, and you would text me back, and people don't know it, but a lot of legislation get done over the weekend. A lot of things happen, and Kathy Little, she's just been a friend for a long, long time, her and her daughter, Kennedy, and Michelle Spearman, and Betsy, our messenger, Thorax. Caleb, thank you so much for all that you've done. And Caleb walked up to me in Dahlonega and said, the Speaker wants you to ride back with him in the car. I said, what's going on? He said, I'll let him tell you. So I got in the car, and he looked back in the back and said, I want you to nominate me for Speaker. I second my nomination. And I didn't hesitate. I said, I'll do it. And he said, we got one problem. You can't tell anybody. I said, oh, Lord, have mercy. I don't know about that. So the Sunday before the election, I said, there's no way for me to leave that seat and walk down here and nominate without giving my leadership knowledge of it. And so I went to see Stacey Abrams and all our other members and told them what I was going to do was not an issue. So thank you for that, Caleb, and Keith and Deidre Powell, all of the members of the Speaker's Office. Thank you for all that you do. I've only served with 3 clerks. You might think I get 3 in 48 years, but that's it. Jack Ellert served a long, long time, and Robbie Rivers, the Speaker and I both spoke at Robbie's homegoing, and our clerk now, Bill Riley. And they do such a wonderful job. And I want y'all to give them a round of applause and thank them for all that they do. And the doorkeepers, thank you, Pat, and all the doorkeepers. Y'all do such a great job. Yeah. And I took a picture with the doorkeepers, and I signed it, every one of them, and I love them and I appreciate them. Back in the day when I was elected, the doorkeeper used to be former members of the legislature, and that happened for a long time. And now having floor leaders that are not legislators is a good deal, because the floor leaders that were legislators, sometimes they wouldn't want to get the door. You'll come up to the door, and I said, what's the problem here? He said, well, I said, you're not a legislature, you're a Easter bird. He said, what is a Easter bird? I said, a Easter bird don't make no soup. So open the door, you know, but that's how it was back in the day with our colleagues. And my seatmates, Billy Mitchell, Beverly, oh boy, if you ever sit near these two, but Tom Buck and Nikki Randall. I love Nikki Randall. She served for 12 years. I held Nikki Randall when she was 2 years old over there in that window. When she was 2, and now she got here and she gone. So I know it's time for me to go. My sweet mates, Carolyn Hughley, a lady that I love and appreciate and who's taught me so much, who's been such a shoulder to me and such an ear to me. I can't fathom, I can't tell you how much she's meant to me. When I used to talk to her about my family situation and all of that, I talked to her about my grandchildren, and she's always been giving me that motherly advice, and I'm thankful for that. Darshawn Kendrick, Viola Davis, Becky Evans, Eric Allen, who came to visit me today, and I appreciate your courtesies, Eric, and Miriam Parrish. Those are the people that serve with me now. And my administrative assistants, Cheryl Jackson has been just you know, she's been just a wonderful person, and I thank her and her husband, Stephanos, for their courtesy extended to me. Thank you for helping with the farewell reception they held in my honor recently, and I'm just really, really thankful. And the first assistant I ever hired was Leisha Johnson. Y'all remember Leisha? She worked for the speaker, but she was my first administrative assistant. And I'll tell you this, I had hip replacement in '93, and when I woke up, her husband was at my bedside, holding my hand and praying for me. And that's a special person that would leave their home in Atlanta and drive to Columbus and visit me at my bedside, and we share a great bondship there. And Janice Wages, the late Wages, I used to work with upstairs, and sometime I get up because Bruce Williamson is in my old office on the 4th floor. I really have enjoyed that office. That's where the majority of the leader's office was at that time. And my chairman, Chuck Martin, is in my old office on the 4th floor where I used to hang out as well. And I want to thank my transportation chairman, Rick Jasper, for his work in this house as well. And the last thing I want to say is that the media. I want to thank the media. I want to thank the news media. They have a role they play. And overall, I've had a good relationship with the members of the media. In fact, some of them are dear friends from the media. And y'all know my love and appreciation for Jim Galloway. In fact, Speaker Ralston and I, you had a resolution on Galloway, and I appreciate him. And I thank all of the others that I've had a chance to interact with, Rick Allen and Prentice Palmer and Richard Elliott, Neil Bortz, James Salsa, Celestine Sibley, Bill Nigert, and Dick Pettis and Aaron Haynes from the Associated Press, who assisted me over the years. How can you measure a 48-year career in the Georgia House? Is it by the number of bills you introduce or pass? Is it by the positions you hold? I don't think so. You measure your career by how you honor this institution. And I honor the House of Representatives, this institution. I've always paid honor to this institution called the Georgia House of Representatives, and I shall always. What will I miss not being in here with you all? I got my top 10. So I'm going to give you my top 10. 10, being chairman of the Columbus Legislative Delegation. I'm going to miss that. That's one of my top 10. I've worked with all these members here, and I love them dearly because they have put up with me for I don't know how many years I've been chairman, but I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Hughley, Representative Buckner, Representative Smith. You all been so great. I'm going to miss all these old days like Omega Day, AKA Day, Delta Day, all them days at the Capitol, Alpha Day. I'm going to miss it. Where's my friend Kim Schofield? Lupus Day, Sickle Cell Day with Gloria Frazier. I'm going to miss all my days here, and but I enjoyed coming as well, honoring those different days. Good morning, Al Williams. How are you? Best day of my life. It's the best day of my life. I've heard that so many times that I'm thinking it is the best day. Every day is the best day of your life. Any day you get up, you ought to thank God. Any day, because some people don't wake up. And so thank you, Al, for your friendship and for working with you. We met in 1975, and we're still friends, and we're still working together, and I appreciate that. Number 7, all members, please take your seat and cease audible conversation. I'm going to wake up one of these days just thinking about hearing that. All members, take your seat and cease audible conversation. I'm going to miss this right here. Can you call the speaker for me? Or the rules chairman? Or the chairman of the appropriations committee? Can you put in a good word for me? I'm going to miss all of those. Not being able to go to Busy Bee, my favorite soul food restaurant. I'm gonna miss that. Number 3, what purpose does the gentleman rise? I rise and make a motion, but speak. You're not recognized. A rules committee meeting. We have a rules committee meeting in 10 minutes. I'm going to miss that every morning. I'm going to miss having that. And then the last thing I'm going to miss is Mr. Speaker, I yield the well. It's been such a great ride. I've seen so many of you all and gotten to know you and I appreciate you all the years. I've had some great memories of some dear friends. I was at Jay Powell's dedication the other day and got to talking with Demetrius Douglas, and he spoke at the ceremony, and we talked about family, and I appreciate you, Demetrius. You've been a dear friend, and just standing there that minute talking about family is always something that's been dear to me, and I would not have been able to serve up here had it not been for Synovus. Synovus has been my rock. I went to work for that company in 1976, and I had lost my job at another company because of the action that I voted on in here, and I lost my job. And I came up here in 1976 when I went home in 1975, and I lost my job in April of 75 after the session, and I came back up here unemployed. And I went home unemployed. I was living off I know you all don't know anything, but I was living off of 90-day notes. You know, you roll them over and get another 1,000. You roll them over, you get another 1,000. But I lived like that for over a year on notes. And one day I was walking into CB&T on Broadway, and Jimmy Blanchard was walking out. He said, "How you doing, Representative?" I said, "I'm fine. Jimmy, how are you?" I said, I'm fine. I said, "But I'm still looking for a job." He stopped and said, you hadn't found a job since you left the other company?" I said, "No, sir." He walked back inside. He said, "Cancel my luncheon. Tell him I'm sorry, but I can't be there." He said, "Come into my office." I went to his office and I talked to him. At that time, it was Columbus Bank and Trust Company. And he looked me in the eye and said, "If you come to work for me, you'll never regret it." So you'll never regret it. And I'll never forget, I went from a trainee to executive vice president, a member of the governance board of the company, and president of the Synovus Foundation. And when I became executive vice president, he gave me one of the biggest lessons I ever could get from a person. He walked into my office and said, congratulations. Said, we got 10,000 employees, 5 states, and you're the highest ranking African American in the company. He said, but do me a favor. He said, stick your chest out. I stuck it out. He said, no, stick it out. I stuck it out. He said, no, stick it out. He said, I let it go. He said, I don't stick it out no more. He said, if you could get here being you, why change? He said, a lot of people get to these lofty positions and they become somebody else. He said, but if you just stay you, you'll be all right. And I appreciate that from him. And he was just a wonderful person. And speaking of I just got to read one thing. I've gotten so many notes from people, so many, and I just want to read one. It moved me this morning, and I don't want to say who it is but I just want to read what they sent me. Good morning, my friend. I know you think back over the last almost 50 years of service in public life, you're reflecting back over your life, and as my mom would say, you're probably very full. Calvin, your resume is very impressive. You have walked among the highest of men and women in our nation. You have been granted great opportunities and favor in your life. As you'll leave this journey serving in the Georgia House of Representatives 48 years and start on your new journey, I wish you the best that God has to offer. Tonight, as I listen to the news about you and your many accomplishments that I looked at over the news tonight, I think back over our friendship and what you have given me. I recognize your service to the community, but I must say that your kind heart has been more impressive to me than anything. I have seen you grant grace and mercy to some who probably didn't deserve it, but you gave it. Calvin, I have watched you take the high road in almost a lot of political events and community activities, and you have encouraged me to do the same. Your forgiving nature has been a strength that I am continuing to work on every day inside of me to make me a better person. Calvin, in the second book of Luke chapter 1, verse 5, as Paul is in prison before being put to death and writes to Timothy about his faith, genuine faith that was instilled in him by his grandmother Lois and his mother Eunice. As I am called to remember the unfeigned faith that dwelled first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and thus I am persuaded it dwelled in thee also. Calvin, I see that faith so much in you. I don't know who instilled that faith in you, but that faith you have in mankind, but I have seen it over and over and over again, and that is why I love you. God speeds, young man, as you focus on your new direction and now have continued your service in the Georgia House of Representatives. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
We have one announcement, and then I know we have a presentation, but will be got a little event going on downstairs in just a few minutes, and some of us need to leave. Chair recognizes Chairman Mitchell for an announcement.
Mr. Speaker, just before we make this presentation, the Democratic Caucus will meet in 216 for a brief meeting and lunch.
After the presentation, the House will be in recess until 2:30.
Mr. Speaker, we're going to be joined by the members of the Columbus delegation and the chair of the Democratic Caucus, Billy Mitchell. Calvin Smyre is such a great American, a great statesman, and the Speaker has graciously consented to have a painting of Mr. Smyre hung in this Capitol. And we have the artist here, Mr. Stephen Tett. Take your hat off. And we would like to make the presentation at this time. Mr. Tett's going to do the honors. Mr. Mitchell is going to say something right quick.
Very quickly, this couldn't have been done without the generosity, certainly, of the Speaker, as well as some of our corporate partners, Malcolm Smith from Aflac in Columbus, Billy Linville from Lexicon Strategies, Calvin Booker, retired Waste Management, and myself. With that, let's make the unveiling. As a result of the Speaker's commissioning this, this will be permanently hung in the Capitol hallway.
We also have bags, boxes, and a basket full of your comments and your well wishes. They're overflowing, and they're just a way for us as individuals to say thanks for the memory to Representative Smyre, the Dean.
That's good, y'all. That was good. That was good. And that event you did was good too.
Yes, it was. Excellent job. Good job.
Great job.